Sandlotters. Here are the Sandlotters, the 744th Sandlotters program dedicated to clean living, clean sport, and good citizenship. In a moment, Judge John D. Watts and Fred Wolf. But first, this message from the people who make the Sandlotters scholarships possible. Whether it be one piece of lumber or a carload, you can get it at Mohawk Lumber and Supply Company, West Chicago at Hubble. Yes, because in Mohawk's 5-acre yards, you'll find 5 million square feet of lumber of every type, size, and description. And incidentally, folks, a huge shipment of plywood just arrived at the Mohawk Lumber Yard. If you want to latch on to the best plywood buy, we suggest you hurry down to the Mohawk Yard at West Chicago at Hubble. It's first come, first served. Delivery will be made anywhere in the metropolitan area. It's Mohawk Lumber and Supply Company, West Chicago at Hubble, Detroit's most progressive lumber dealer. Sport shorts from coast to coast.
Pittsburgh. Joy reigns in Pittsburgh today with the signing of slugging Hank Greenberg with the Pirates. Greenberg put the Smoky City baseball fans at high tide when he decided to play one more season. He signed a contract with the Pirates that will make him the highest-paid player in National League history and perhaps in the history of baseball. Lakeland, Florida. Harold Newhouser has joined the Detroit Tiger fold today, leaving only 5 players who have not signed their contracts. The unsigned quintet includes Paul Dizzy Trout, Bob Swift, Roy Cullenbine, Freddie Hutchinson, and Al Benton. Hot Springs, Arkansas. Middleweight champion Tony Zale today expressed willingness to put on the gloves with suspended challenger Rocky Graziano anytime, anywhere. Detroit. The Detroit Red Wings believe the world is against them. The Motor City Pucksters are desperately fighting to make the National Hockey League playoffs, so tonight they are scheduled to meet the world champion Montreal Canadiens. Detroit. Newspaper and radio circles today are extolling the deeds of Bud Shaver, who died last night after a short illness. The 47-year-old former WXYZ and Detroit Times sports editor suffered a stroke Tuesday night and died in the Harbor Hospital at 10:35 last night. San Diego, California. The 2 mighty mites of the fairways, Bantam Ben Hogan of Hershey, Pennsylvania, and Di Reese of England, will tee off today in a 36-hole match for the mythical International Golf Championship. Detroit. George Sonny Horn, promising young middleweight from Long Island, New York, was savoring his revenge today, for he punched out a decision victory over rugged Pete Meade, Grand Rapids, Michigan, in a 10-round slugfest before over 6,000 fans at Olympia last night.
The high school column.
The Metropolitan Basketball Playoff to determine a city champion, which completed its first round last night, proved to be a bombshell to the favorite, Southwestern. The defending city champions were beaten by Northern 39-36. Northern, who finished in 3rd place in the regular season in the East Side Division, was not expected to give the Southwestern boys much trouble. Pershing squeezed through over Central 30-28. Miller topped U of D 35-32. The final game saw Denby and Northwestern forced into overtime before Denby came through with some fine shooting and walked off the court the winner 35-31. In the Parochial League, Mount Carmel 67, Xavier 21. Dick Kowalski, Mount Carmel forward, scored 29 points as they held a comfortable margin throughout the entire game. Other scores: St. Vincent 54, St. Bernard 43, Sacred Heart 30, St. Hedwig 21, St. Patrick 54, St. Casimir 26. St. Mary of Royal Oak won their 12th straight by downing Shrine 38-23. St. James 39, St. Rita 17. And that's the latest from the high school column.
The Sandlotters High School Sportlight.
This is Judge Watts. Our high school spotlight this week shines on Tom Doran of St. Catherine's High School. And here is Fred Wolf, the voice of Mohawk Lumber, with Tom's story.
If it's reliability you want, I've got the boy. That's the way Coach Harry Spielman of St. Catherine's High School sized up Tom Doran, his 6-foot 1-inch basketball center. No one could go wrong on Tom, Coach Spielman continued. He's always giving his best, whether he's in a football, basketball uniform, or at his desk in the classroom. He rates so high with the students that his senior class swept him in as president. He's an A student, you know, and Tom is bound to be a success in whatever he attempts. All the bashful Doran could muster from such a build-up was, "Thanks, Coach, but I'm really not that good." Tom can't give all his time to athletics at the East Side School, however. He must help his mother support a family which was left fatherless some years ago. Yes, Tom's deceased father can be proud of his boy. So to you, Tom Doran, goes the golden basketball, and an invitation is in the mail for you to attend the Sandlotters Scholarship Dinner, to be held later in the year when 2 $1,000 scholarships will be awarded to Detroit's 2 most deserving high school athletes.
Now it's time for the voice of Mohawk Lumber, Fred Wolf, and yesterday's Sportlight, the legend of the bullseye.
It's a strange story, this tale of a man who was a great national hero as well as a sports idol. Eddie Grant was a big leaguer, a grand person, and truly a great ball player. It was before the First War, and much like our own Charlie Gehringer, Eddie was the quiet, studious type. He was a Harvard man, strictly the pipe and book type of guy. But nevertheless, Eddie became one of the greatest third basemen for one of the toughest baseball men of them all, John McGraw. Even old John warmed up to this lad. For at third base, Eddie Grant was like a stone wall. With the grace and speed of a ballet dancer, Eddie stopped everything that came sizzling his way. He was about to step into the World Series of that year when he heard the call to colors in that first great war and enlisted as a private. His friends told him he was crazy to cast aside the gold and the glory of a World Series. But in his quiet, deliberate way, he simply answered,
No, I guess I better go. It seems to me this is more important than playing baseball right now.
And so Eddie Grant became Private Eddie Grant. And that's how the strange legend of the bullseye began. Months later, in France now, the ex-ball player had become a captain. He and others in his outfit had been slugging it out with the Kaiser's legions. Ragged, dog-tired, and hungry, Captain Eddie Grant wished his outfit would be relieved. But they couldn't. Not now. The big push was on. They were a part of a battle that was to make history. The famous Battle of the Argonne Forest. The Germans were putting up a furious defense. They were throwing everything they had at Captain Grant's company. But suddenly, the nerve-shattering bombardment came to a stop. A terrible silence closed in. Captain Grant, puzzled by the deathly silence, called the command post for information.
CP, calling command post. CP, answer please. Command post. No answer. Well, men, it looks as if this is it. We're cut off. That's why the Jerrys stopped firing.
Yes, they were cut off. The entire company was cut off from the rest of our forces. Now it was just a matter of being slaughtered by the enemy. The ball player captain pulled a map out of his pocket and with a dark pencil circled a spot in the forest carefully.
Our only chance is to fall back to this spot where there are 2 companies. Now, we can join them and be safe. But it means walking through 2 miles of the forest. And, as you all know, that forest is full of snipers. But it's our only chance. Let's go.
With his 200 men and the map in his pocket, Captain Eddie Grant stepped into the lead and started for the rendezvous. Death lurked behind every tree. The tired, hungry men kept up their courage only because Eddie Grant set them a magnificent example. He was always in the lead, more often exposed to fire than not. It got so every few minutes, fingers of slashing sniper's lead reached out to bring death to the men following Eddie. The snipers made the walk a nightmare. But Captain Grant kept pushing for that spot he had circled on the map. The ex-ball player remembered that the time to keep pushing hardest is when you're in a pinch. This meant life or death to his men, and he was going to get them through. The horrible silence was shattered regularly with a scream of snipers' bullets. The mist of early dawn made the forest a ghostly place as the ragged group approached the safety point. Now they could see our forces. It was just a matter of yards now. But sitting high on a tree branch, a sniper took careful aim and fired. For the sniper, it was a bullseye. The bullet ripped into the chest of the man leading the group. Yes, Captain Eddie Grant. Of course, Eddie's men cut the sniper down with 100 shots. But there was the brave captain, dead in the mud of the Argonne Forest. Most of his men were saved, but he was dead. And as the legend goes, someone removed that map from Eddie's pocket, and strangely, it was discovered that the sniper's bullet had passed through that black circle Eddie had drawn around the safety spot, the exact spot where the lost company was saved, the exact spot where Captain Eddie Grant was killed. Fantastic? Yes, but true. Truly, one of yesterday's greatest spotlights. The legend of the bullseye.
And now, the judge's corner. Here is Judge John D. Watts.
Upon the death of her husband, Mrs. Barney Dreyfus was elected to the chairmanship of the board of directors of the Pittsburgh Athletic Company. Barney Dreyfus passed on in 1932 after a lingering illness. Born in Louisville, Kentucky, Florence Wolfe, the youngest of 13 children, was educated in that city and married Dreyfus, then the proprietor of the Louisville Colonels. Mrs. Dreyfus has always been intensely interested in the affairs of the Pirates and to this day ardently follows their fortunes. Mrs. Dreyfus stands out prominently in baseball, the king of all sports, because she loves the game and because to her is the finest of all sports. She has been a credit to the game. Again, we remind the Sandlotters of Detroit of the two $1,000 Mohawk Lumber and Supply Company and radio station WXYZ scholarships, which will be awarded to two of Detroit's most deserving high school athletes. Hard work on your studies may pay dividends in scholarships, so keep working hard.
Just as soon as taxes and baseball will be here, lumber prices will go up in the spring. And that's why Mohawk Lumber and Supply Company, West Chicago at Hubble, advises that you buy your lumber now. Whether it be for repairing or building your home, garage, or a snug chicken coop, your every lumber need can be supplied at Mohawk Lumber. Now, here again is an illustration of a typical Mohawk lumber bargain. They have 400,000 board feet of spruce boards selling at $85 per 1,000 board feet. That's exactly $15 a thousand below market price. Is it any wonder that people are headed for the Mohawk Lumber and Supply Company, West Chicago at Hubble, to get better lumber, better prices, and quicker delivery? Listen in again next Saturday at this same time for Judge John D. Watts, Fred Wolfe, and the Sandlotters. Larry McCann speaking. This is the Michigan Radio Network.